What's up my loves, my name is Paige, this is Paige with the Page, and today we're going to be doing my December wrap up. December was a month. I had the worst reading month I had this year, and that's totally fine. I'm not mad about it. I read 34 things in November. I knew I was going to burn out. We're saying that. And speaking of burnout, I'm currently roasting in my parents' place. It is so hot and I have 2 lights on as well as the door closed so that the noise isn't too bad. So I'm dying. I've also had the biggest past 2 weeks as I'm filming this on the 4th of January. And so I'm in pain. I'm tired. I'm exhausted in my core. So I apologize that my enthusiasm is not going to be the top tier. My energy levels for the next week and a half are just not going to be in my videos. I will get back into a routine and be a lot better with it, but my enthusiasm and care factors are currently in the negatives. Let's talk about the 9 things that I read in the month of December. 9 things is still fucking fantastic. If you only read 1 book a month, or there are some months that you don't read at all, that's totally fine. For me, just in comparison to my average reading, I try to aim between 10 to 15 books a month. So this is below my average. And I also had the lowest number of pages read with 2,575, which equate to 83 pages a day. But I know that a lot of those, I didn't pick up a book for like 2 weeks. And it equates to each book being roughly 286 pages. My average rating was a 4.22, which was good. I'm really happy that I managed to keep within that 4.5 range. In terms of genre, I read 1 contemporary, 6 fantasy, 1 graphic novel, and 1 non-fiction. For format, I read 3 physical, 4 physical audio, and 2 ebook audiobook combinations. In terms of age range, I read 4 adult, 1 middle grade, and 4 YA. In terms of rating, I gave 2 5 stars, 3 4.5, 3 4 stars, and 1 2.5. I read 4 standalones and 5s that were part of series, and I did finish off a series to its entirety. The biggest book I read was Magnus Chase, and that was 491, just scraping under the 500 page for a big book. This does have an appendix which would take it over 500 pages, but I don't ever include those, so 491 it is. And my smallest book was Go Ask Alice, which was 162 pages. My listening hours equated to 16.4 hours. The first book I read was Go Ask Alice, originally published under anonymous, but the actual author is known to be as Beatrice, and I gave this a 2.5 stars. I don't know still how I feel about this. It was written as an educational tool, but published as though it was a non-fiction diary of this girl, and then at the ending, spoiler alert, is she passes away 3 weeks after the last entry in her journal. The thing is, this is not non-fiction, it is fiction. I don't know how I feel about this. I got it for the prompt of a morally grey character and for Cluedo, and I would feel horrible putting this as a non-fiction morally grey person. It's a teenage girl who is going through a lot and has substance abuse. It's just a lot that was in it, and I know that a lot of people love it and a lot of people hate it. I'm sort of falling in the middle of the road, mostly because with that it seems really unethical how it was presented and marketed. My copy says this is a non-fiction text. I borrowed it out from the library. I'm just thinking of those members of my community that are thinking that this is a non-fiction work when it is not. So yeah, I don't know. As a fiction story, it was really compelling and deals with a lot of topics that I really am fascinated about reading in fiction text. Putting it as a non-fiction to scaremonger kids to not take drugs, not a fan. So very controversial. I read this purely because of the Pop Sugar reading prompt of a book published anonymously. That's where this came into it. But yeah, oh my god, many ethical concerns. Also, I will be including all bar 1 as a image because I'm currently at my parents' place and I don't have the books with me. I wasn't going to transport them here just to film this video. Then I read The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by Baum. This is like the history of Santa Claus, and it was so cute. I gave it a 4.5 stars, just with it being little snippets. I wasn't fully invested all the time, but it was super cute. I absolutely adored it, and it's a really beautiful Christmassy, Northern Hemisphere Christmassy read. I would reread it each Christmas just with how much I enjoyed it, and getting to know the origins of Santa Claus. Super cute. And this was going towards Cluedo's prompt of reading a book off script. The next one I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and this was for Cluedo's mood read prompt. I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed the overall discussion and topics. There are some really beautiful quotes. The plot was a tad predictable for me, and there were some things that was like, okay, that is a choice that I would not make. I think there is a lot of positive discussions, especially around dealing with suicide. It is a very hard book to read, and sorry to anyone, but I was listening to someone talk about it and they're like, this is not a book to start before bed, and then I probably started it before bed and then had many regrets because it is quite concerning in the first section of it. So that's where I was at for that, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I think Matt Haig has really great thoughts and descriptions of particular concepts. Overall, I didn't find the protagonist a likable person, and I wasn't really rooting for them. I was rooting for them to stay alive because I feel like you'd be a dick not to, but it wasn't because of the way that she was written. It was just my genuine human empathy causing that. Then I read Stars Above by Marissa Meyer, and this concluded my journey of reading the Lunar Chronicles with the Lunar Along, and I gave this a 5 fucking stars. This is a collection of short stories, all introducing the characters and little snippets that we heard about throughout the Lunar Chronicles, but sort of tie it all together and you can see the connections. You don't need to read it, but if you're in love with the characters and want to continue on being in their world, it is such a great addition, and I had so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. Every book past Cinder I gave 5 stars, and I've absolutely adored this. Looking back, Cinder I'd push it up to a 4.55 star because I just love this series and it's so wonderful. I love this collection to have a little extra time with the characters and just get to see them in a different way. 5-star read, absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to continue our Lunar Along under the Bookstarer name. Then I read Magnus Chase, The Sword of Summer, which is by Riordan, and I gave this a 4.5 stars. I love Riordan's take on mythology. I don't know if this is the next series I'm supposed to continue on with. I did Percy Jackson and now continuing on with Magnus Chase. I think Annabeth is making an appearance, so very curious about all of that and how it ties together, but this was so much fun. I absolutely love Norse mythology, and so seeing all of this just unfold the way that it did. Rick knows what he's doing. We love Uncle Rick in this house, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. I have been in Sydney looking for the next books, but I haven't actually found the second one. I have to get onto that because I would like to continue on with this series this year. I had a blast with it. I really enjoyed the characters, and the adventures were just really captivating. It didn't feel like an almost 500-page book. It felt very quick, and that was for the Cluedo prompt of beautiful cover. And then for my extras in Cluedo, the first one I managed to get to was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge, and this was for a non-fiction, which I gathered from Litland. I gave this 5 stars. I knew picking it up that it would be absolutely amazing. Rennie's approach to race and how white people respond to discussions about race and how shit it is to have to deal with stupid people not conceptualizing things. I just really appreciated the way in which they addressed it and spoke to non-white people. Rennie just really encapsulates the fact that white people then make it about them, and that's not cool. It's meant to be about, hey look, I'm a black person, this is my experience, I need you to understand as a white person, you have it better because you are a white person. And I just thought that was really exceptionally well done. I am very tired and I apologize for the slaughter explanation, but I gained a lot out of this, and I really appreciate that Rennie has put this in the world for people to use as a conversation tool. Then I took a little bit of a detour as I fell into a reading slump trying to finish my last book, so I ended up picking Children of the Whale Volume 2 by Abby Umeda, and I gave this a 4 stars. I am really confused about what's happening, but I enjoyed the reading experience. I really find it's a beautiful story that's unfolding. I'm very confused about the different people that are at play and how each interact with one another. So I think as I read more volumes, I will get a clearer understanding, but at the point that I'm at, it's a 4-star, really enjoyable read, and it just helps me to get back into that world and enjoy it and see what's progressing, but acknowledging the fact that I really don't have any idea what's happening. And then I read The Apocalypse Suite by Gerard Way, Gabrielle Barr, and Dave Stewart, and I gave this a 3.54 star. This is the first in the Umbrella Academy series, and I know that there's a lot to it. They're all made up in separate little parts. They weren't originally a overarching story, so I'm curious to see how it shapes up in future volumes. I love Gerard Way. I love their concepts. I'm just, again, I had a lot of confusion happening, and that's totally cool. I don't mind being confused in books. I acknowledge that it's probably a me thing rather than the book thing, but overall I had a really interesting time reading it. I've watched like the first 2 episodes of Umbrella Academy, and it was interesting seeing the characters, knowing that it's not exactly the same, but overall a lot of fun. And then the last book that I read was Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. I gave this a 4.5 stars, and this was fulfilling the categories prompt of a frog. Frogs did not make as much of an appearance in here as I would have liked. They did have some appearance, especially talking about the different constructions of magic, but it was not as prevalent as earlier books in the series, which is fine. This is the prequel to the Practical Magic series. So what happened was Alice Hoffman's done Practical Magic and released that first, then gone and followed the aunt story in the prequel, and then this is following the origin of the curse on the Owens family. And then the next one that's been released is the Book of Magic, and I believe that's the last one, and that's where they are all tying up the characters to break the curse. This one was awesome. I adore this series. I liked Practical Magic, but I loved Rules of Magic, and then this fell somewhere in between, which is why it's a 4.5. I love these characters. I feel like they are really wonderful witches and just embrace their nature and who they are. There's a lot of strength and determination, and I enjoyed seeing one of the witches go properly to the dark side, which we haven't really had. We know don't go to the dark side because we know from the first one that dealing with bringing people back from the dead does not go well. This definitely had interesting elements to it, and I had a lot of fun reading it. Practical Magic is the only one that I have here, but I did read 9 things in the month of December, and I really enjoyed most of what I read. It was a lot of questions, and I don't think I was in the right headspace to be reading things that required me to ask questions on what I was reading. But that's totally fine. Some months are just like that. Let me know in the comments, how did your reading go for the month of December? Did you have a lovely holidays? Welcome to 2022. I know I've had a video up before this, but it's still very unreal that we're progressing through 2022. Let me know how your reading went, and if you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!